Hey guys, it's AndrewJohn100 here, back with another video, and this time it's going to be a little different. Today I'm going to do something that I haven't really done before, discuss my thoughts on a video game. Now, I have done videos discussing my thoughts on a certain thing, whether it be a Transformer, a Megazord, or even a FNaF plushie, but I've never actually done a video game, and this is something that I've always wanted to do. So I figure I start with special delivery because I feel like that's the easiest start for me. Now, I know a lot of people like this game, and that's fine, but personally, I think it's the weakest installment of the Freddy's franchise. Why am I not surprised? Listen guys, just because I think Special Delivery is the weakest installment of the franchise doesn't mean that I hate it. And no, it's not because it's a mobile game. Then there's actually more to it why I think it's the weakest installment. Before I share my thoughts on the gameplay, the mechanics, and the story, let's talk about the game itself. Freddy's Special Delivery is an augmented reality game developed by Illumix in collaboration with Scott Cawthon. It was released on November 25th, 2019 for Android and iOS devices. The story of the game is that Fazbear Entertainment is sending people animatronics to provide them hours of fun. These include animatronics like Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, Foxy, Springtrap, Baby, and a couple of other characters from each individual games. However, once that animatronic arrives at your house, it becomes a time of survival, with only a flashlight and a controlled shock for your survival. And that's pretty much it. Once Freddy arrives at your house and you're given an overview of what you have, the game's story kind of loops and becomes less interesting to invest in. However, it is a mobile game, so they don't really have very complex stories. The story of the game isn't canon with the original FNaF lore, and instead it has its own storyline. So, no need to put your theory hats on, people. This is not Freddy's 9, it's just a spin-off game. But is the gameplay of this game good? Well, let's go into detail about it and find out. Upon starting the game, you have your hub area, which is your map, that also shows you which animatronics are coming to your house. And at the bottom of your phone, you have 5 tabs. I'll start with the middle one, which is the camera up button, which is where all the action takes place. In this segment, this is where you can collect Remnant. I'll explain more on that later. But when someone does show up, you have 2 things at your disposal: a controlled shock and a flashlight. Your flashlight is used to pick up interference on your screen, and whenever you find a big amount of interference, that's where the animatronic's location is. But sometimes they'll occasionally go haywire and pop up in front of you, and shocking them can have fatal consequences. When they do that, just look away. They will also occasionally fake charge you. You'll know when they charge you when you hear their noises and their irises are the only things that are visible. However, when they do charge at you and they decloak, that's when you shock them. After an encounter, you receive rewards like parts, plush shoots, CPUs, and mods. These rewards can be used for the workshop. In this tab, this is where you can modify and deploy and send animatronics to your friends who play Special Delivery. Now that, I gotta say, is pretty creative on Illumix's part, but I'll talk more about that later. However, you need an endoskeleton to use the rewards that you receive. You can get endoskeletons by winning the tutorial level, winning them through streaks, or purchasing them through Faz coins. It's pretty obvious what plush suits are. You can make it what kind of animatronic you want it to be. CPUs are the chip that makes the animatronics behave. So for example, if you put a Chica CPU in the endoskeleton, then it will act like Chica. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about the mods, as they make your animatronics behave differently. And you can use Remnant to make your animatronics more efficient. Once you've installed a plush suit, a CPU, then you can send the animatronic to salvage or send them to a friend. Now that's pretty fun, but they have some hiccups that I'll talk about later. However, the more you use those animatronics, the more their condition decreases. That's where parts come in. Parts can be used to repair your animatronics. You need a certain amount of it to make them 100% new again. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the emails because there's not much to talk about. You receive emails when a new enemy is about to approach your house, or when you reached a milestone in parts or Remnant. The final tab is the shop, which is where you can buy cosmetics, lures, fast coins, devices, and mini packs, which include plush suits and 3 lures of a specific character. Now that I have explained how FNAF AR works, is the gameplay of this game good? Well, for the first hour or so, yes. But after a while, the gameplay slowly starts to get boring. Why is that? Well, it's because the gameplay never really changes. All of the characters, with a few exceptions, act the exact same way. They don't have their own unique behavior patterns, and they're pretty easy to deal with. Even Baby acts the same, which is kind of disappointing considering her role in the FNAF lore. Now, you could argue some do, like BB and Baby and Foxy, as Foxy and Baby are a little faster and BB's sounds are replaced with balloon noises. But the thing is, with those characters, you're still doing the same thing. Finding their interference, look away when they go haywire, and shock them when they decloak. Now, I'm not saying that the gameplay of Special Delivery by itself is bad. On paper, it sounds like it has a lot of potential. Now, the idea of battling yourself against hostile animatronics that break into your house sounds like a very scary idea, and cool on its own. I mean, Nixon did it with the Joy Creation once, and that game was scary. In an awesome way, that is. And I know that this is a mobile game, so the Special Delivery's gameplay is not going to be as complex as the Joy Creation, but still, the gameplay that Special Delivery has offers very little in terms of variety. There are only a handful of characters that have different behavioral patterns, those being Springtrap, Toy Chica, Toy Freddy, Mangle, and Toy Bonnie. Although Toy Bonnie is kind of a downgraded Springtrap, he is technically a mix of Toy Chica as well, so he's still somewhat different. Now, some could argue that with the criticism that I just said about Special Delivery's gameplay, the same kind of criticism can be said about the first 4 games. But I have to disagree. I'll use Final Fantasy 1 as an example. That game has something that Special Delivery lacks. Different strategies. With every character in that game, all the characters have to act differently, aside from Chica. With Bonnie, you have to keep track of him on the cameras, and when you see him at your door light, shut the door on him. And the same with Chica. With Foxy, you have to periodically check on him, because if you don't, he'll venture out of Pirate's Cove and jump scare you when you're least expecting it. With Freddy Fazbear, he tries his best to hide from the shadows so you don't see him. And when he does arrive at your door, because he hides in the shadows, the door lights on your right won't work on him. And so that you don't have to keep the door closed on him when you're not viewing the cameras. But if you want to view the cameras, you have to close the door on him before that happens, because if you don't, he'll kill you. And the same can be said about the other games. All the characters in those games have, with a few exceptions, require different strategies. With the puppet, you have to wind his music box. With Springtrap, you have to use the lures on him. With Nightmare Foxy, you have to try your best to keep him out of your closet. And the same can be said with the Cislocation characters in Cislocation Custom Night. So the problem in Special Delivery still stands. Now, with that said, some people will say, wait a minute, Andrew, you can buy lures from the store. Yes, I can do that, but this leads into my second problem with Special Delivery. Its heavy use of microtransactions. In order to get fast coins, you have to either watch ads to get 10 per each, or buy packs using actual money. In some ways, this shop is unfair to people, most notably kids who play this game. So, the kids who play this are left with an option: either beg their parents for a roll, stack, cup, or tubs of money in order to buy plush suits and lures. And also, some of the items on the store are sold for ridiculous prices. Like for Toy Bonnie, you have to pay 2,300 coins for his mini pack and 4,200 in coins for Toy Chica's pack. Like, that is way too much. What is with Toy Chica and her being so expensive on the store? It's also weird that you use parts to buy devices for gameplay, which I think maybe this shop would have been more accessible if parts were the main currency, but they're not. I think what Illumix should have done is have fast coins be the main currency and parts be the second currency, meaning that parts are less common. And if you decide to beat this game without the microtransactions, then good luck, because your chance of getting something other than parts are entirely luck-based. Every time I attempt to play this game, I receive nothing but parts, and I've only received 2 CPUs and plushies, which were for Bonnie and Chica. I mean, I had to buy Freddy, Foxy, BB, and Springtrap's mini packs in order to get at the plush suits. Now I'm just trying to get the CPUs, which is impossible because this game's award system is unfairly luck-based and should have been skill-based to begin with. Another issue is that if you choose to play this game without lures, then good luck, because it takes forever for something to show up, meaning that the story progresses in a very slow pace. Like, for the first few days, you're stuck fighting against Endo-1, Chica, Bonnie, Freddy, and sometimes Foxy. Until finally, after a while, Springtrap, BB, or Baby show up. And that's another reason why special delivery gets boring. It takes forever for something new to show up. Alright, I could play about the store, but what about the workshop? Well, the workshop, while a nice addition to the game, has some hiccups to them as well. Like, for starters, you have no idea of when someone is playing special delivery, or if they even play it anymore. And also, Remnant is very poorly explained. Like, the emails explain that Remnant makes your animatronics more efficient. How exactly does it make it more efficient? The emails don't elaborate at all on how exactly the Remnant makes your animatronics better, other than more efficient. What the Remnant does is enhance the animatronics' salvaging and attacking abilities, but it shouldn't require a player to search up the internet to find out how Remnant works. The game should always make it clear from the start of how these things work. The only other nitpick I have with the shop is that the mod setup is pretty poorly designed. But we're not even done yet. Before I move on, I want to talk about the fourth, but also the worst thing about special delivery. The bugs and glitches of this game. Oh boy, this game has probably the most annoying glitches I've witnessed in a Five Nights at Freddy's game. What is that, you may ask? Well, for starters, the game constantly crashes for no reason whatsoever. It doesn't matter if you're in one of the it doesn't matter if you're exiting out of tabs or during an encounter. The game constantly crashes for no reason whatsoever. And if you're fighting against an animatronic, sometimes the game will crash after an encounter, and the game will think that you've lost that encounter, and therefore you lose your streak. But that's pretty rare to happen. So the game will sometimes mostly crash outside of encounters. Another glitch is that the game sometimes stops loading at a certain number, meaning that you have to constantly reopen and close the game until finally it goes up to 100%, which makes special delivery not only boring, but extremely tedious to deal with. But there are more glitches in this game that make special delivery tedious. Sometimes during encounters, the stag doesn't sync up well with the animatronic's location, or sometimes I feel like stag doesn't show up at all. The battery also drains way too fast. Like, it shouldn't drain by 2 or 3. It should drain by 1. And that's why the flashlight is kind of unfair in this game. The game's gameplay, the microtransactions, and the bugs and glitches are the biggest problem with special delivery. Alright, now that I got that negativity out of the way, let me try to be a bit more positive. Now, are there any good aspects of the gameplay for special delivery? Yes, there are a few praises that I have. Like, I like seeing Endo-1 as an enemy in this game. After being a pretty minor character in the FNaF series and only showing up as a major character in FNaF world, it's nice to see Endo-1 get some attention. I also like RxQ's level 2. It's probably one of the only times where the gameplay takes a turn for the worse. Well, okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you get what I mean. The gameplay actually changes. And also, the game's ambience is really well done. I like how every character has, well, mostly every character has their own unique atmosphere, so that you know which character you're facing off against. Whether it be Freddy, where Freddy has a demonic jingle that plays in the background, and Bonnie's atmosphere has a bit of an electric guitar feel to it, which fits his character, I guess. The game's microtransactions, while pricey, do a good job of explaining on what they do, and are pretty useful to have. The game's soundtrack is also pretty good. I mean, the game's title screen is pretty good, although it feels a bit generic when compared to Help Wanted's theme. In fact, it kind of sounds similar to Help Wanted's theme. Not the cues, but the overall tone of the music. And also, I like how the music switches between each tab. The game's soundtrack goes from slow and mysterious in the camera, and you hear the game's normal title screen in the workshop, and you get different music for the store and emails. The game's jump scares are also pretty intense too, even if they have different jump scare screams. But hey, at least it's not as dumb as Foxy and the Fun Times making FNaF 4 jump scares. Okay, there are also some additions to this game, like the voices, but before I talk about them, I want to discuss how this game looks. Now, for a mobile game, this game looks pretty good. I mean, it looks like Five Nights at Freddy's, and the environments look nice too. And as for the character models, well, I think they look okay. I mean, I know they're not as good as the VR models, maybe because they're not as detailed, but I know this is a mobile game, so of course the models through polygons are going to be a lot lower than they were as the VR models. But let me talk about the FNaF 1 animatronics. The colors on the models are a near exact match of the original and aren't as off as the VR models, which for some were just too off. But there's one thing I don't like about the models. Well, mainly the FNaF 1 animatronics. I'm not a big fan of the metallic look that Illumix gave them because it just doesn't suit them as they were originally illustrated. It kind of makes them less creepy. I kind of wish they had the fabricated look to them. I do like the metallic look on Baby and the toys, but for Springtrap, it really doesn't make sense since his suit is made out of fabric, so his suit wouldn't deteriorate, it would just rust badly if his suit was made out of metal. Some character models also have some weird edits to them, like Freddy and Bonnie. Their lower legs are shorter than before. Like, I don't get the point of that. Chica's cylinders around her neck are also missing, and Mangle's model just stretches so far from the original source material. She looks like a fan-made SFM model, and so she doesn't really blend well with the original, with the relatively untouched models. And I know for a fact that these models aren't made from scratch, because when you compare these models to the VR models, their meshes are just way too identical to be made from scratch. Illumix just did the same thing Steel Wool did: retopologize, edit, and optimize the models to make them run better with the game engine. I'm only saying this because there's no way the models in AR were done from scratch. But now that I got the visuals out of the way, let's talk about the new voices. Now let me discuss Freddy's voice. This voice of Freddy is certainly a lot better than the one he had from Help Wanted. Now those of you who follow me on Twitter know my thoughts on Freddy's voice, but I'll keep it a little brief on this video. I think Freddy's voice definitely captures that deep and commanding tone that Scott wanted. However, this voice just isn't perfect. Why? Because it's just too sinister for his role. Freddy is an animatronic bear who's meant to entertain children. I know he's the leader of the FNaF 1 animatronics, but he's not Darth Vader, for God's sakes. So this Darth Vader-like tone that they went really doesn't fit his role. Now again, I'm not saying that the voice is bad, but it's lacking something that Foxy's voice had, sounding cartoony. Like, Scott wanted the voice to be deep and commanding while keeping a tone that's friendly and inviting. And he didn't want the voice to be overly cartoony, implying that he wanted the voice to be cartoony, just like Foxy's voice. So those two aspects is what Freddy's voice in AR is lacking. If the voice was less sinister and sounded more friendly and inviting while sounding a bit cartoony, the voice would be fine. Again, I'm not saying that the voice is bad, it's definitely good on its own, but for Freddy, it's not perfect and it needs to be polished. But hey, this voice is certainly a lot better than Toy Bonnie's voice. Oh boy, I've been wanting to share my thoughts on this voice for quite a while now. But first of all, here is a demonstration of my first initial thoughts of Toy Bonnie's voice.
This is my chance to shine and your chance to fade away.
What the f-
Okay, that was a bit of an exaggeration, but still, this is seriously the worst voice given to a FNaF character. And before you say I'm over-exaggerating, let me explain why I think that. For starters, the voice is just way too high-pitched, to the point where it's just annoying. It's also overall too girly and chipmunkish, which is uncharacteristic for Toy Bonnie since he's a rabbit. I mean, he shouldn't sound like that. He shouldn't sound like Alvin. He's not a chipmunk. He's a rabbit. And I know people are gonna say, but he's a toy animatronic. He's supposed to sound like that. Well, first of all, I have to disagree with that statement because one, it doesn't change the fact that the voice is annoying, and two, I get what they were trying to go with this voice. I think they were trying to go for a more gender neutral type voice mean that they wanted to sound male, but not too much like male, while sounding kind of girly. I get what they were going for, but they tried way too hard to make it kid friendly, and that's why it bothers me, and that's why it doesn't work for Toy Bonnie. Giving him a pinch synthesizer doesn't make the voice any more fitting. It actually makes him more unfitting and also annoying. I mean, when this voice was first released, I wasn't alone. Almost everyone hated it. I get that people like this voice, and that's okay. But personally, I think it's the worst voice we've got in the last 3 years. Again, if you like this voice, then that's okay. But it's time to move on to Springtrap's voice. And honestly, while it was kind of unnecessary, I think this voice is fine. Why? Because this is honestly the only voice out of the other two I just mentioned that's actually well balanced. It's pretty much what I expect him to sound like. What I meant by why it was unnecessary is because we kind of already knew what Springtrap sounded like, as he and Scraptrap are the same character. Because before he became Scraptrap, I assumed that he couldn't talk because of all the spring locks jammed in his jaw. But after Fazbear's Fright burned down, he had to get a new suit, and thus the spring locks were gone, and he could talk again. And while this was a bit unnecessary on Illumix's part, the voice itself is fine. However, his laughs are kinda cartoony to the point where it's kinda cringy. And Illumix did recycle lines from Ultimate Custom Night for Springtrap's voice. And no, it's not because of lore. It's just because Illumix cut corners while making Springtrap's lines. So the new voices are a double-edged sword. One is unbalanced, one is absolutely horrible, and the other is fine though unnecessary. Aside from the new voices, the recurring voices, like the ones from Ultimate Custom Night, reprise the roles for their characters. Like, Christopher McCollum it sounds like he had a lot of fun with Foxy's voice. Emberly Connors is still cute, while sounding creepy as Toy Chica. Darren Roebuck nails the super kid-friendly trait with Toy Freddy. And Heather Masters is always great as Circus Baby. And Jenna Rue does voices the Mangle perfectly. But when you compare Toy Bonnie and Freddy's voice, they sound like fan-made auditions when compared to the recurring voices. Again, I'm not saying Freddy's voice is terrible, but I think there are some things about it that Illumix can do better on. And just try harder on Toy Bonnie's voice and get rid of that awful Alvin impersonation that he has. So with all of that said, what is my conclusion on Special Delivery? Again, I think it's the weakest installment of the Find Freddy's franchise. And I don't mean to say that and say that the game is awful. It's just the game itself isn't very good in general. The gameplay, while good on paper, gets boring after a while or so. The shop is unfair, the game's bugs and glitches make the game annoying to the point where it makes it impossible for the story to progress, and the new voices are just mediocre at best. And also, all of this is not in any way trying to put down Illumix, as I can see that some hard work was put into it, but I think the game just feels like it was rushed and could have been polished a bit more. If Illumix were to maybe add some things to the gameplay, make the shop fair to other people, improve the new voices, and just maybe fix the bugs and glitches, then this game could have been almost as good as the previous entries. I want to like Special Delivery, but I can't fully appreciate it. And like I said, there are a few things that I like about this game. Like, the ambience is pretty good, seeing some characters that were minor characters into enemies is pretty satisfying, the music is pretty good, and some aspects of the gameplay are pretty good as well. But these pros can't save the game from being just mediocre at best. If this game didn't have so many bugs and glitches, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. But right now, this game gets a 5 out of 10. The game itself isn't horrible, it's not the best, it's just meh. So, I'm gonna go, guys, and I'm gonna let the outro wrap things up from here. Hey guys, it's AndrewJohn100 here, just here to say, I hope you all enjoyed the video I've made. Give it a big thumbs up if you liked it, and if you want to see more content, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to share this with your friends. And also, if you want to get instant access to any video I upload, just hit that bell icon next to the subscribe button, and that way you won't miss out on any future uploads. Okay guys, that's all I gotta say for now, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.